Okay, so Norm, welcome back. I know that you're away doing your business, but there is so much for us to talk about it. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I want to start off by talking about Judge Aileen Cannon's dismissal of the Trump document case. You and I have had so many conversations on and off the record that I don't even know where to start. So the place I'm going to start, can you explain the context of Judge Aileen Cannon's dismissal of the Trump document case? And do me a favor, share with my audience your initial reaction to this decision.
My initial reaction to Judge Aileen Cannon's decision to dismiss the Mar-a-Lago documents, indictment, and prosecution of Donald Trump on the day that the Republican National Convention started was that it was legally baseless and politically outrageous. It was the equivalent of a nominating speech for Donald Trump at the convention, or perhaps nominating Aileen Cannon, a self-nomination for promotion in a future possible Trump administration. It was the single worst piece of judging, totally divorced from Supreme Court precedent, from every other lower court to consider the question, from the plain meaning of the congressional statutes that of course allow Merrick Garland to appoint Jack Smith. It was so legally baseless and so politically transparent that it may qualify for the single worst legal decision of the 21st century so far in the United States. I thought the Supreme Court's Dobbs opinion, or their opinion striking down the Chevron rule, or their immunity opinion allowing political assassinations were bad. This was worse.
Well, that again, Norm, depends upon your perspective. For Donald Trump, it was a wonderful, wonderful decision. My question that I do want to ask you, so you clearly believe, as I do, that her decision was politically motivated and there was political influence in here. But what do you think the political motivation, and it's such a self-evident question. I mean, what are the political motivations behind Judge Cannon's decision, other than she wants to be an attorney general of the United States? And this was the perfect way for her to put her CV in for consideration. And other than, of course, the shit decision that it was, what evidence do you think supports or refutes this view?
I think the decision is a warning of what life in Donald Trump's America would be like if he makes it back to the White House. It's a warning and an alarm bell to the American people. And Michael, your own personal experiences.
Oh, we're going to get into that.
And your very important Supreme Court case that was just filed are about that warning as well. And I'm sounding the warning because we are following up this week with J.D. Vance and Aileen Cannon, Donald Trump's two running mates. This week is a week in which Donald Trump is not holding back his autocratic vision. And we're going to follow that up with a conference next week that exposes the danger. It's in New York City. It'll be next Tuesday. It's cross-partisan. It's mostly Republicans. It's called American Autocracy, a warning and a response. And so that's what I think this decision was about. It was a naked disregard of the law. Get used to that. I don't think the American people want that, Michael. Flagrantly ignoring the law, a Trump judge who he rushed in after he'd lost the 2020 election, giving him payback. On the day of the RNC, she couldn't hold this opinion for a week. She clearly, the only inference possible was that Judge Cannon wanted to give Donald Trump a boost because federal statutes say Merrick Garland is able to appoint prosecutors to investigate. The actual words are detect and prosecute crime. That's what Jack Smith is doing. I mean, it's a slap in the face of America.
But Norm, let me just go back to this and say to you that her motion and order were predicated, which they have to be, upon legal grounds that she cited.
Yes.
To dismiss the case.
Page after page of spurious, fabricated, made up. I mean, it was, who's going to believe that?
Well, what were the legal grounds? And obviously you don't find them legally sound.
No, it's like science fiction. She claims that under the Constitution's appointments and appropriations clauses, that the appointment of Smith is invalid, that the Smith appointment does not comply with the requirements of the constitutional structure for having officers engage in this, and she goes on and on in her opinion also that the appropriations, the payment for Smith are not proper. It's nonsense, Michael. I mean, there's no such, every court to look at this, and it's been blessed by the Supreme Court, has said it's a no-brainer. It's a slam dunk. It's been rejected again and again. So the idea that there's any legal fig leaf here, yes, it's been dressed up in excessive verbiage. That's what the courts do in Viktor Orban's Hungary or Erdogan's Turkey. They operate at the behest of the regime. It takes a lot to shock me, including, I must say, knowing as I do, I've studied your treatment. I wrote the afterword for your book of revenge in the Manhattan Trump trial that was distorted in your cross-examination. The jury didn't buy it, like you were talking about getting revenge. No, it was the revenge taken against you. So I've seen a lot. This opinion shocked me to my core. As much as anything I've seen, it is a warning. It is a loud alarm bell of what judging is going to be like in Trump's America as he places his hand-picked people on the bench. And it is a great danger. We've never seen this kind of naked politicization. At least the Supreme Court had the decency to hold their Chevron, striking down Chevron, the regulatory state, the power of the federal administrative state to protect our air and our water and our food and our drugs and our children. At least they waited till after the presidential debate for that and the atrocious immunity decision. She did it on the day of the convention.
See,
I mean, it's shocking.
Yeah, I wasn't shocked, not to the same extent that you certainly are. And I'm not shocked because I knew that her intent is not to remain on the federal bench. Her intent is for a government position, White House, general counsel, attorney general, I think is what she's really looking for, which would be devastating to this country. And based upon the timing, based upon the poorly written decision, all this does is give Donald Trump an opportunity to delay the inevitable, because now this case has to be appealed, and it'll be appealed to the 11th Circuit. After the 11th Circuit, it will then go on appeal to the Supreme Court. No matter how fast that they would ever try to push this thing, even if Harlan Crow was paying Clarence Thomas in order to push this thing forward, you can't push this case fast enough in order for it to be heard and then ultimately tried before November. It is an absolute impossibility. So I believe that the goal of Eileen Cannon, which was to comply with her fealty obligation to Donald Trump actually worked?
But we should say, look, I think the immunity decision that the Supreme Court did is a terrible decision. But there are pieces of it that represent, there's one part of it that I just can't understand, the absolute immunity. I mean, that allowing a president, you can't be criminally prosecuted if he orders an assassination. I mean, that's unfathomable to me. But this whole opinion, if you took that piece out and you just had done extended Nixon v. Fitzgerald immunity to the criminal sphere, that is rebuttable immunity if something is within the outer perimeter, okay, you can argue about it, but it's, there's an argument to be made. The absolute immunity part of that piece and this entire opinion that the Constitution prohibits Jack Smith's appointment when you have a slew of federal statutes that have been ruled by other courts and by the Supreme Court to be valid and binding, and she's gonna, at Donald Trump's, in Donald Trump's interest, she's gonna throw this out. The first time she was smacked down by the 11th Circuit, Michael, it was because she announced a special rule for former presidents. And they said, that's not how America works. Very conservative panel stayed her decision interfering with the criminal investigation because she wanted to give special privileges to a former president. Well, she's just done it again. I don't think the 11th Circuit is going to tolerate it. I think even conservative judges see the danger here. And people need to listen to this podcast. They need to listen to you. They need to look at what happened to you. They need to look at the big picture. They need to sign up. You can come in person. It's on the website, State Democracy Defenders Action. Google State Democracy Defenders Action and my name, and you'll find our website. You can sign up for our conference, July 23rd in New York City, American Autocracy. A warning and a response. I don't think the American people, bless you, brother. I don't think the American people are going to go for that, Michael. They like democracy. They like their freedoms. And if Donald Trump and the likes of Eileen Cannon are allowed to run this country in 2025, it is going to devastate not just a danger to the elites, but it's going to be devastating for average people across the country. And when people see that, notwithstanding all the challenges of the Joe Biden candidacy, I think that they are going to reject it. They're going to reject it.
I agree with you, but here's my take on this decision and the danger that Judge Eileen Cannon is posing right now, not just to the entire judicial system, but to all Americans and their rights. Think about it this way. What precedent, Norm, does this dismissal set for future cases involving presidential documents? And what are the potential long-term implications? I mean, you do not want the president of the United States on his way out just taking all the documents. You don't now, based upon this decision, there is really no more NARA. There's no more National Archives because the president can take whatever he wants.
Hold on. No, this decision, as bad as it is a decision about the invalidity of Jack Smith's appointment. It does not go to the merits, to the legal issues. What Donald Trump did was still wrong. It was still a very serious alleged crime. There's a debate now that's going on in legal circles. Should Jack Smith have filed in D.C.? There was an argument about whether you could file in D.C. or not. I am of the view he should have filed in D.C. People I respect, from liberal to conservative lawyers, disagree with me. It's arguable. But this doesn't go to the merits. It's wrong. It's terrible. It's unlawful, but it only goes to the question of the appointment and funding of special counsel Jack Smith.
Understood. Okay. Nevertheless, I'm also concerned about the entire appeals process because Donald will never before the election have to deal with this case. And how many times have, Norm, you and I had the conversation? You thought this was the easiest and the strongest case of all 4 indictments that Donald was going to have to face. Now, the funny thing is, how many times have you seen me on television turning around? And you've actually echoed the same sentiment that at the end of the day, the Alvin Bragg case, while it is the least gross of all of the criminality by Donald Trump and his cohorts, it is the one that is now holding him accountable. And September 18th, he is going in for sentencing.
Thanks to your honest, painful, difficult, extensive, powerful testimony. There's not enough adjectives to describe. And I was in the courtroom. Occasionally, you'd see me there. I was reporting my daily trial diary for CNN.
I know, I was angry at you, by the way. Every time that I would kind of like look up and I would see you, you would look away. Like you didn't want to make eye contact with me.
I did not want the judge to say, why is Michael, or the lawyers, Michael's friends are sitting there. And you know who else made eye contact with me? Donald Trump, when he came through, and he would glare, he would point. And Michael, everybody who listens, I'm on the podcast often, knows this. Michael and I are good friends, and we talk. It's basically the same conversation that we have. That's why the pods are so good. It's the same conversation we have off the air, we have on the air, but I took a total break from talking to Michael because I wanted his testimony to be totally independent. I missed you. You did a great job on the stand, Michael. Great. And, you know, you were the key witness. You and David Pecker, you know, it's very significant. When the jury asked their questions, they asked about Michael and David. The two of you were the bookends of this case. And, you know, it's still hard to believe that Donald Trump has managed to dodge 3 out of the 4 cases. I mean, if it were a novel, you couldn't make up that and everything else that has happened. I mean, it's so unbelievable. If a Donald Trump administration in 2025 with the most, I never use this word. Can I make history? Yeah. On your podcast, I've never said this before, the F word, not F-U-C-K, fascist. He picked the most fascistic vice presidential candidate in J.D. Vance. I just released a long essay on Vance yesterday and on the newest member of Trump's Project 2025 team. You know who that is? I did a crash. My colleagues and I did a crash essay. Eileen Cannon. She joined Team Trump yesterday. She's not hiding it. But with the danger, and it is a danger to the American people. He's going to round up.
So what is Lumen? Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or you're burning carbs. And it gives you a tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, something I need badly, and even stress management. So let me tell you how Lumen works. All you have to do is you breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fat or carbs. And then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on the measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after your workouts and your meals so that you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips tips to keep you on top of your health game. So here's what Lumen does. Lumen provides crucial insights and helpful guidance for your lifestyle. It requires effort, though, and it also requires a lifestyle change to achieve results. Let me be clear. Lumen is not just a weight loss tool. It's about understanding and improving your metabolic health. So let me also tell you why metabolic health matters. It matters because your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food that you eat into fuel that keeps you going. Because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimum metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, and better sleep. Lumen gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so that you can keep up your energy and stave off cravings. So if you want to take the next step to improving your health, go right now to lumen.me/Cohen to get 15% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/Cohen for 15% off your purchase. And thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode.
Over 10 million people. He's going to put them in concentration camps and deport them. It's going to have a devastating effect on our economy. It's going to drive inflation up. It's going to hit the American people. The use of the Insurrection Act. If your wife or your husband or your kids are going to march, and Trump uses the Insurrection Act, they're going to be the ones who are arrested. People in your neighborhood, in your workplace, are going to be the ones who are the subject of this roundup. The economic impacts are going to be devastating. The retaliatory prosecutions, the attacks are going to be something that we have not seen in America, at least since the end of Jim Crow, the legal impunity that applied in Jim Crow. So we need to wake up. And the J.D. Vance nomination should also be a wake-up call. Let me tell you, Wall Street's up in arms because they know this guy is very, very dangerous. Yeah. Those aren't liberal Democrats.
Yeah, well, fuck them, because they're the ones that are right now supporting him. I mean, guys like, friends of mine here in the city who own massive funds. I mean, I can't believe that they think that Trump is going to be good for them. So let me ask you this question, because obviously there were several people who wanted to be his running mate. They were in the run. Marco Rubio. You also had, what's his name? Tim Brown. There were a lot of people. What factors do you think led Trump's decision to nominate J.D. Vance as his vice presidential running mate? And the reason why I ask this is because I wouldn't think that that's who Trump would have picked. The reason being because he actually has a big fucking mouth, J.D. Vance. And Trump likes him just like Mike Pence, like a wallflower in the back to do his bidding. So what do you think those factors were?
There's another word that I never use.
Fucking asshole?
Besides, no. I have begged my friend Michael over the years. I've been like, Michael, you're now an elder statesman. You've entered the history books with denouncing Trump. People are going to look back at your testimony. I first met Michael when he was a congressional witness. I wanted him, I got his help before he went to jail, prison, and to guide, to help me understand Trump and Trump world, and to guide the first impeachment of Trump.
And I gave you some documents.
And you showed me, you were the first to tell me this guy's not leaving the White House long before anybody else. You're like, Norm, at the end of our first day, you're like, Norm, let me warn you about something else. This guy's not leaving the White House peacefully. And you basically predicted the violence of January 6th. It took violence and the backlash to the violence to drive Donald Trump out. He did not want to go. He picked J.D. Vance because he wants somebody in that moment. And I'm going to tell you the other word, the H word that I never use, but it's Vance's word, not mine.
Ho?
He wants no.
Ho bag?
Just be patient.
Right.
Just be patient.
All right. Sorry.
I'm coming to it. He wants somebody who's going to be loyal to him in that moment. Pence put his loyalty to the Constitution first in the moment of January 6th. Trump looked at Rubio, the other finalists, Burgum, is like, oh, I don't know. Those guys might be loyal to the Constitution. J.D. Vance will be loyal to me. And that's what he wants. And J.D. Vance has said, on January 6th, I would not have certified. Okay? He's put Donald Trump above the Constitution. It's the first time that we've seen this since Jim Crow, maybe since the Civil War. And J.D. Vance described the meaning when he said, this is his words, not mine. He said, Donald Trump could be our American Hitler. Now, I don't think Trump is going to be. I do. That is, well, we can debate that. Who knows? I think he's going to be there's a reason Trump's number one favorite foreign leader is Viktor Orban, because he kept some of the democracy, but he infused it with a spirit of illiberalism.
No, let me just jump in for 1 second on that one, because his favorite.
Yeah, it's your turn to talk. You are the host. I've been talking for 5 minutes. It's your turn.
So his favorite happens to be Vladimir Putin. And there are several reasons, but I'm going to give you 3. First of all, if you know anything about Russia, Russia is actually a democracy, bullshit democracy, but they have a constitution, right? As fake as it might be, they call themselves a democracy. They are not. Number 2, Vladimir Putin owns 25% of every major company that's there personally, which Donald likes for himself. And 3, he treats the place like a king. Anybody who he doesn't like, or somebody writes something or says something negative, they pick them up, they put them in jail, or they throw them out of a window or the top of a building. That's what Donald Trump likes. So it is the Vladimir Putin ideology. He also likes Putin's concept that it doesn't matter who you vote for. All that matters is who's counting the vote, so that he can now be and remain president ad infinitum.
Wow. This is the most of all the podcasts that I've ever done with you, with anybody else. And I've done a lot with you, and I've done 1 or 2 others too. This is the most important conversation, most important moment in all of those. And of all the conversations you and I have had, this is the most, on and off the record, this is the most important one. First of all, I want to make very, very clear, I am not saying Donald Trump could be an American Hitler. That's J.D. Vance's words. Why does that matter? And Michael Cohen's words. Why does that matter? And, J.D. Vance has now put himself in a position kind of similar to the position, like almost an adopted son, to go with Don Jr. The position that you were once in, vis-a-vis, in some regards, vis-a-vis Donald Trump. We heard about that in the Manhattan trial. Why does the fact that J.D. Vance once said that and said terrible things about Donald Trump publicly, why does that matter? Trump wants somebody who's totally malleable. And, your books are so... I treasure our friendship for so many reasons, but one of the reasons is because you truly have brought me inside this threat to our democracy represented by Donald Trump, because you were so close to him. In some ways, the closest among the very closest to him. You had his very most sensitive secrets that you were in charge of protecting. Why does it matter that Donald Trump has taken somebody who once called him a possible American Hitler, and now he's the closest to him, together with Don Jr., closer than Melania? You know, she barely, as far as we can tell, she barely talks to him. I'm sure they're leading largely separate lives. Because Donald Trump wants somebody who's totally malleable that way, Michael. He brought you into the cult. You broke free, to your credit. You're like John Dean with Nixon. You broke free. And John Dean says Michael Cohen, is a worthy successor to his path of redemption. He wants somebody he can subjugate that way. You know, kiss the ring. J.D. Vance kissed the ring, number one. Number two, and I'm going to come to your Putin point. Forgive me for going on because it's so important. Number two, he wants somebody who will embody this spirit of MAGA autocracy. It's so contrary to America. American democracy is liberal democracy in the classic Burkean sense, the idea of Anglo-American democracy, where you genuinely have checks and balances. In illiberal democracy, as you point out with Putin, as I would argue, his actual role model, Trump's actual role model is Orban. I'll explain why. You bend the entire system to the leader's will. That's kind of what you were saying about Putin. But you do keep the popular vote. It's not a rubber stamp like in Russia. There actually are elections in Hungary. They're just, the playing field is very heavily tilted, but it's not completely one-sided. Like in Poland, we had this. The voters, after 8 years, threw out the Law and Justice Party. So there's theoretical elections. You keep the structures, but you put your loyalists, like Eileen Cannon, you put your loyalists into the structures, so the structures are bent to your will. J.D. Vance is the example of that, and he is a worthy successor. Trump sees him because he's smart. He gets it. Like that moment of Trump, you got to admit, the guy, Michael, you didn't waste your life on a schlub those decades you worked for Trump. The guy is an evil genius. I mean,
Yes.
The moment when he was shot and he had the presence of mind to tell the Secret Service no, he took a risk on a second shooter. The blood stream, the image with the fist, the flag in the background, that's for American. That's like Iwo Jima. Okay.
That's what I said. Yeah. It's just like you would.
Genius, evil genius.
Yeah.
So J.D. Vance is like that. Don Jr. is just okay. Don Jr. is not somebody who can command a true populist. J.D. Vance can actually take Donald Trump's movement and make it into a permanent institution in America, like Orban has succeeded in doing in Hungary.
Interesting.
He's smart enough. He's charismatic enough. He gets it. He's a natural born politician. He gets it. He's a MAGA meme message machine. He does it naturally.
So, it's funny. It's funny, Norm, because you were talking about my two books. Just to let you know, and obviously my listeners now as well, I'm working on my third book already. And, what you're saying right now, it's how I start the book. In fact, I'm going to even, I got a whole bunch of, you want how I start this book off? I hate Donald Trump, and not for the reasons you think. Not because he threw me under the bus, not because he tried to use a disgraceful, two-faced lawyer to spy on my criminal defense case, not even because he listened to the sycophants he surrounded himself with who told him to cut me off completely when I was at my lowest. I hate him because he and his actions forced me into becoming his foe. After protecting a guy for more than 10 years, that's all you know. You don't want to stop. At least I didn't. And I go into the whole thing. It is so powerful, Norm. It's everything.
I love it.
And I went back in time to when you and I first met. It's why I decided to read it. and to write this. It's when, like, you and I first met, you were shocked to understand exactly why I did what I did, why others were doing what they're doing, including, as now we're discussing, J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance is no fool.
Remember one thing. I advised Donald Trump's presidential transition.
Yep.
When he was I do this every cycle. I have my special basket of issues that I advised, worked on for years. I went in the White House, advised President Obama, all the ways that a president should follow the rules, stay out of trouble. We were, I viewed you as representing Donald Trump's dark side, but I had hope. I was stupid. Or maybe I was naive, or maybe I was idealistic, but I'm like, yeah, I met with all the people running the Trump transition, the Chris Christie team that came from New Jersey. We had a day of meetings. Then I went to transition headquarters. I shared materials. I talked to the people. Then I saw, the moment for me and that first meeting in the first part of 2019, when you and I became friends, we hit it off right away at that first meeting. But the moment for me, like, you remember certain moments, that moment when you and I met is one. Another moment, it was when Donald Trump said, I'm going to take emoluments. I'm going to keep my businesses. I really thought he might give up his businesses, have a real blind trust. You would have known better, right? You could have told me, you're being an idiot. That was the moment for me that the whole trajectory laid out. It was before he took office. Remember the press conferences with the folders?
Sure do.
And the later that day, I called Walt Schaub, the head of the Office of Government Ethics. He was just as shocked. And he came over and he publicly broke. No head of government ethics has ever done this in the history of the Office of Government Ethics. He came to a press conference. I called the Obama ethics czar, had the Bush ethics czar, Richard Painter, there. Big press conference, and Schaub denounced it. That was the moment. If Donald Trump will violate the rule against a president getting foreign payments through his hotels and properties and government payments, the only ethics rules that our founders and framers felt so strongly about, they put in the Constitution. If he'll flout the Constitution, he'll do anything. And I wrote with Painter, this is going to end in tears for Trump and the country. He's on the slippery slope. Criminal conduct is coming. Sure enough, it did come. The whole trajectory. And then that's why I signed up for the impeachment, because of the obstruction of justice he had done on Russia. And but then I met you and you said, oh no. Basically what you said to me was, you got to prepare for this impeachment and the next one, because he's not going to leave office peacefully.
Yeah, I did say that to you. But I want to ask you this, though. How do you think that Vance, now as Trump's running mate, how do you think that this ticket will influence key swing states and voter demographics in the upcoming election? Because J.D. Vance has some awfully fucked up, that's a legal term of art. He's got some fucked up ideologies and his platform and policies and political views. So how do you think
he's
that's
proven? Look, Ohio is firmly in the Trump column. They're going to stick J.D. Vance in Pennsylvania for the next 4 months. He's going to do side trips to Michigan, Wisconsin, and he is going to attempt to continue demolishing the already shaky blue wall of Joe Biden. I think J.D. Vance, he himself is don't exaggerate the importance of geographic boundaries of the states. I think he does have regional salience. So people who say he won't add to the ticket, no. I think he will be able to talk to disaffected Americans. Look, I'm going to be honest. I blame the Democrats in part for that. When we did the neoliberal, there's a lot of good things about Clintonian neoliberalism. It's not a party ideology. There's some merit when the far right and the far left say there's a uni party in Washington. Like, I embrace it. There used to be a centrist consensus, right? Where you could sit in a room with people and forget their party and say, do we agree on political freedom? Yes. Accepting the outcome of an election, letting the voters decide? Yes. Do we believe in personal freedom, choice, where you worship, how you live? Yes, we believe in political freedom, personal freedom. Do we believe in reasonable market freedom? Yes. Those are the pillars: political, personal, and market freedom, the pillars of the success of America. And we've exported that success around the world. We've lifted billions. Our system has lifted billions out of poverty. But when we did the big neoliberal globalization of the 1980s and the fall of the Cold War, both Clinton, Bush, there's some Reaganism in this. And look, we did some of it in Obama. We didn't fully grasp. A lot of these Trump voters, millions and millions of them, were Obama voters. Yeah. We didn't grasp, we were shocked by the summer. I was there in the White House. We did not, the summer of the death panels and the summer, the midterm elections of 2010, that was a shock to us.
So you know what, Norm? You keep
exploiting. Wait, I haven't finished my run-on sentence. I'm finishing it. So I blame both parties for hollowing out middle America and not thinking about the cost of this global prosperity and this system, and the way Americans who were hit by the job losses, the erosion of the community, the impacts, the opioid crisis that came after that, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, West Virginia, and the states around there. I blame, and the social dislocations, the personal freedoms. We didn't think about how do we balance that with traditional America, with our religious culture, and have a conversation. Don't take the personal freedoms away, but have a respectful conversation. Don't look down at them. All of those neoliberal failures created fertile ground for extremism. We know that from history. We know that when people's lives are upended, you can get autocracy. That's what Trump and Vance is going to exploit. And Vance may be a more brilliant demagogue even than Donald Trump.
Wow. So look, that then brings us to a different point and a different question that I want to ask you. My question to you is this. That's the Republican side. They are right now flying high. Joe Biden is being asked not only by members of Congress, Democratic members of Congress, but now you got fucking George Clooney, right, turning around and jumping in, asking for Biden to step out of the race. So my question to you is, how do you think that Biden's decision to stay in the race affects the Democratic Party's unity and strategy going into the election?
Well,
I never give easy questions on Mea Culpa. Not to
you. Look, first of all, I know Joe Biden. I've helped his one of his presidential campaigns. worked with him in the Obama-Biden White House. Otherwise, I was close to Bo, his wonderful late son. We would speak together about our vision, Bo and I, our generation, our vision for America. He actually came when I was ambassador. He came, we did talks together in Europe about the importance American values like fighting corruption. So I've said from the get-go, Joe Biden's not budging, okay? You might like it, you might agree with it, you might disagree with it. Even before he said, and now he said it over and over again, he ain't voluntarily choosing to move. So however you feel about that, and then there's room to debate that. And a lot of smart, good, committed Democrats feel that he should go. And, and that's a legit debate. He's not leaving. That's not who Joe Biden is. You and I are voting for Joe Biden, notwithstanding that he's gotten older. He's not as good at talking. He has to fight his stutter a little more. He has this, both Biden and Trump have this thing of switching names. I do it all the time. I'm 63 years old. I think my brain is pretty good, wouldn't you say, Michael?
I would say,
but I have that.
Pretty good.
But I have that brain switching, the name switching thing. There, I just did it. I said brain instead of name. It's because I'm thinking 2 steps ahead. I'm thinking while I talk. I have the names running around my brain. I switch them. I think I do a good job at the stuff I do. If you look at the Lester Holt interview of Biden on NBC yesterday, that is probably a pretty good rendering. That doesn't change my determination to vote for Biden. I think the American people, and I say this with no disrespect to my many, many friends who have pushed hard. I told them it was futile. They didn't like it when I said it. I'm like, you're not budging Joe Biden. And he also has a grip on a majority of the delegates. So there's not going to be some delegate insurrection. He's going to be voted in unless he steps aside, which he ain't going to do. With all love and respect to the people who say he should, it would be better. Maybe it would. Doesn't matter. So because he's made that choice, I know that his age-related talking stumbles. He's done a great job as president. I said this at an Obama gathering. We all had a get together in Chicago. And I made some comment about how Biden has been the greatest president since LBJ. And I got some funny looks in an Obama reunion, right? When you say that, but I believe it. I think I'm confident Biden is totally up to the job. And Kamala has come into her own. I know her also. She's come into her own as vice president. It takes a while in that job. She's figured it out. Yeah. So the mission this is kind of where we started, and it's where we should use our last 6 minutes to focus on. Biden, Harris.
We got more than 6 minutes.
Biden, whatever we have. Biden, Harris is the ticket.
Yeah.
Okay. They are the ticket.
Okay.
So wait a minute. I'm not done. I'm very long-winded, Michael. The mission is you and I are voting for them because we know that they're good. Even if Biden has some lapses, Trump's and Vance lapses are worse. And what that means is, and then I'll move because I came outside and somebody's doing something loud behind me.
That's all right.
What that means is every American has to understand that this is a referendum on Trump, and Trump's weakness is not on Biden and his. And if every American can see this election as I see it, as you see it, then Biden will win. So hope is not lost, but we also have to prepare. We have to be realistic. It's a tough road ahead. And, what does 2025 look like if Biden doesn't win? We got to do both.
You're right. So let me jump onto that for a quick second, too, because it's not just 2025 to worry about Trump's election. It's Project 2025, something that's not being spoken about enough, something that J.D. Vance is intimately aware of. And obviously, that is his political ideology and his view. So do me a favor, explain to my listeners, what are your primary concerns regarding Trump / J.D. Vance's Project 2025, as well as the potential impact on all of our lives, on the lives of the federal government, and so on?
Well, at the Just Security website, I publish with the autocracy expert Ruth Ben-Ghiat, NYU professor, our nation's leading authority on dictatorships. I publish the American Autocracy Threat Tracker that answers your question of what the impact would be of Donald Trump's Project 2025. And we catalog, it's the only comprehensive catalog of every single promise and threat that Donald Trump and all of his allies have made, what the country would look like. And we analyze them. And this conference that we're having, July 23rd, in person in New York City or live streamed. So if you can't make it to New York, you can join American Autocracy. A warning and a response. You can find the information, State Democracy Defenders Action. Google that. You'll go to our website. You'll see our anti-autocracy conference. All of that is there to answer your question. What would our lives look like under Donald Trump's autocratic regime? And the answer to that question is that Donald Trump would round up as many as 13 million Americans, all our friends, our neighbors, people who work in all of our businesses. He would set up concentration camps. The people who do, those are people who do, the migrants who do a lot of labor in our country. It would have an immediate inflationary impact. It would have a devastating human impact. He would fire tens of thousands of government employees. That would have a cataclysmic economic effect. Again, the human effect, that's our friends and neighbors. That also, by the way, is going to make it harder for all of our lives to function, for government to do all the things. When you call, you got a question about your taxes, your Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. He would cut, it's Project 2025 wants to eliminate those government benefits. So there's going to be a lot of those pensions. It's going to devastate. They want to remake America. They're going to use the Insurrection Act. If there are protests in your city, if your kids want to do a march in their high school to protest First Amendment, so Donald Trump can send in the police. And it's not just the social and the human impacts, but Michael, it's the economic effects. He wants to impose punitive tariffs. That's going to make things very expensive. That's going to drive inflation. You're going to see double-digit inflation come back. He wants to eliminate the independence of the Federal Reserve. That's going to mess with our monetary supply. It's going to erode the American economy. It's a devastating set of plans, and it's out there in plain sight. That's why it's not just ordinary people who love democracy who are upset today with the appointment of J.D. Vance as the vice president, who agrees with these things, who said Donald Trump could be an American Hitler. He knows what's going on. He's decided it's better to join him than beat him.
Yep.
It's the Wall Street, it's finance who are saying, "Oh my God, what's going to happen here?"
I don't get it. So listen, Norm, as mea culpa comes to an end. It's 1 hour, and I can speak to you for many, many hours. I have one last topic that I want to discuss with you, and that is the writ of certiorari that I recently filed to the Supreme Court of the United States for the unconstitutional remand of me by Donald Trump and his weaponized Department of Justice through the bloviated asshole Attorney General Bill Barr. And, look, I have this wonderful lawyer, John Doherty from Gilbert LLP. It is a fabulous writ of certiorari. The thing that I want to ask you is, the fact is, the significance of the cert goes way beyond just Michael Cohen. And I know that you know about this writ. So my question to you is, what do you think is the significance of this writ of certiorari, and why is it important, including into your answer? How could this specific decision impact the broader issue on presidential power, accountability, and legal protections for all Americans that don't have to be worried anymore that for whatever the reason is, the president of the United States, in this case, it was Donald Trump, has an ire towards you?
Well, you're filing at the Supreme Court to seek redress for the unlawful treatment you received, retaliatory, in response to your saying you wanted to write a book when you were on release, and they threw you back in the clink after you said you wanted to write, you wanted to speak your mind. First Amendment, absolute protected activity. And your brilliant lawyer, Danya Perry, got you back out. The courts have said, the Second Circuit reviewed this. They said what happened was wrong, but legally they didn't have the power of redress because of the set of cases that limit the ability to sue government actors. And now we're asking the Supreme Court to change that. It's one of the most important new cases at the Supreme Court of the year. There is a basis, if they're serious in their immunity decision, where they say certain kinds of presidential wrongdoing, like a personal vendetta, are not covered by immunity, then that should lead the Supreme Court, should lead them to reopen. Your case made news around the country, the New York Times, CNN. I mean, it was in the headlines when you filed, and rightly so. It's a bellwether. It's a barometer of what will happen in this 2025 Donald Trump democracy. Will they, if Donald Trump and J.D. Vance should take power, will they seek revenge and retaliation? Will there be legal recourse or not? You've got the Gilbert firm. You've got John, your lead lawyer, brilliant counsel. I know others, the country paid attention. We have to be realistic. It is the United States Supreme Court that just has issued all these MAGA decisions, Dobbs, the Chevron case, the immunity case.
Hey, Norm, let me jump in for 1 second here, because they better wake the fuck up and understand that Donald Trump will do the same thing he did to me. He will do to members of the Supreme Court. He could do whatever he wants. And the same thing for Elon Musk, who's going to be giving Donald about $250 million. The first thing that Donald's going to do when he takes power is take their money also. They are supporting the guy who's going to kick them square in the nuts. And this is the thing about the Supreme Court, too. Donald will be able to do to them the same thing that he did to me. No doubt.
That's why it surprised me that they endorsed this absolute immunity and potentially the power to send SEAL Team 6 to do political assassinations. Because if they make a ruling he doesn't like, he'll send SEAL Team 6 for them.
Yeah.
That's what your case is about. Your case asks the question, did Donald Trump send the federal government for me in retaliation? It's one of the pillars of this Project 2025 possibility. That's why it's the most important cert petition filed so far for the new term of the Supreme Court. We're early in the cert cycle. The post-term cert cycle, the term has just ended. It's the most important one. It's a barometer. Michael, however it turns out, it's a first-rate cert petition. I've read it. It's outstanding. It deserved the media Times, CNN, and other media attention it got. And once again, what can I say? You're fighting the good fight on behalf of all of us. It's why you're such an important voice. I'm so honored to call you my friend, to be a friend of the Mea Culpa podcast, and to be discussing these topics. There could not be a more important set of topics than the ones that we've talked about today for America, but because America is so central in global democracy, really critically important topics for the world. And thank you for inviting me on.
Well,
and
Norm,
you're always great questions.
Yep. And thank you for making us all smarter today. And I look forward to seeing you at your upcoming conference. Just one last time, tell people where they can go. I am going to be there. That is a promise that I am making to you.
Thank you. July 23rd, New York City, American Autocracy, an alarm and a response is the name of the conference. Google State Democracy Defenders Action. That's, you can tag my name on there, Eisen. You'll go to our website and you'll see Anti-Autocracy Conference. You can join there to attend in person, or wherever you are in the United States or around the world, to join by Zoom. It's based on our American Autocracy Threat Tracker, which you can find on the Just Security website. And Michael, I'll look forward to seeing you there. Maybe we'll do a live edition of Mea Culpa from the conference.
There you go. Thanks, Norm. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you.